In the Egyptian desert, 12 kilometers west of Luxor, the sands whispered against the ruins, shifting with the wind as if reluctant to reveal their secrets. Dr. Layla Rahman shielded her eyes from the sun's glare and studied the excavation site, a sunken temple complex, half buried beneath centuries of dust and neglect. "This is it," she murmured to herself. The temple was dedicated to Hathor, the goddess of love, music, and motherhood. But Layla had long suspected there was more to this site than met the eye. Her team had followed cryptic inscriptions found in an obscure tomb, symbols that didn't match traditional Egyptian records. The texts spoke of a hidden chamber, a sanctuary not of the gods but of knowledge itself. Standing beside her, Omar Fahmy, the team's geophysicist, adjusted his equipment. "The scans were correct," he said, nodding at the ground. "There's a structure buried deep beneath us. It's massive. Not a crypt, something else." Layla exhaled sharply. She was close. The months of digging, of enduring bureaucracy and skepticism, were about to pay off. "Start digging," she ordered. The team moved quickly, shovels and brushes revealing the edges of a stone slab marked with intricate carvings. The hieroglyphs were strange, twisting, interconnected patterns that seemed more like circuitry than traditional Egyptian script. "Look at this," whispered Jamal, their epigraphy specialist. "This isn't standard hieroglyphic form. It's almost encoded." Layla crouched beside him, tracing a gloved hand over the symbols. "Encoded." Jamal nodded, excitement creeping into his voice. "It's not just words, it's data." Omar's voice cut through the moment. "We found the entrance." A dozen hands cleared away the remaining sand, revealing a sealed doorway. Unlike the weathered limestone of the temple ruins above, this surface was smooth and dark, as if made from a composite unknown to ancient builders. There was no handle, no latch, no visible means of opening it. Then, as if responding to their presence, the stone hummed. A deep, low vibration ran through the ground beneath them. The strange door shifted, sliding open silently, revealing a dark tunnel leading into the depths of the earth. The team exchanged uneasy glances. This was no ordinary tomb. Layla turned on her headlamp. "We go in. But carefully." The tunnel walls were smooth and featureless, unlike any known Egyptian architecture. The deeper they ventured, the cooler the air became, carrying the scent of something metallic, almost sterile. "This doesn't make sense," Omar muttered. "This should be sandstone." But this, he rapped a knuckle against the surface. A dull, almost metallic thud echoed back. "Synthetic. How is that possible?" Jamal asked. Layla didn't answer. She was focused on the faint light ahead, a pulsating glow emanating from the chamber at the tunnel's end. The group emerged into a vast underground hall. And then they froze. The walls were lined with massive obelisks, each one glowing faintly, covered in the same intricate hieroglyphs they had seen outside. The air hummed, charged with an energy that shouldn't exist in something this ancient. At the center of the chamber stood a towering black monolith, unlike any artifact found in Egyptian history. It was perfectly smooth, its surface shifting with unreadable symbols, data streams of some kind. Omar turned, his face pale. This isn't Egyptian." Layla stepped closer to the monolith. Her fingers tingled as they hovered over its surface. "Dr. Rahman," Jamal whispered, his voice barely above a breath. "Think this is a machine?" Layla's pulse quickened. This was beyond archaeology. This was technology that should not exist in a structure buried for millennia. Then the monolith activated. A deep resonance filled the chamber. Symbols on the obelisks began shifting, scrolling rapidly. The air grew thick with an electrical charge. And then a voice spoke. "Who seeks the wisdom of the stored?" The voice was neither male nor female, neither young nor old. It echoed from every direction, as if the chamber itself were speaking. The team recoiled. Jamal clutched his equipment. "That's not possible." Layla swallowed, forcing herself to remain calm. Who are you?" A flicker of light erupted from the monolith, forming hazy, shifting faces, human faces, speaking in languages both familiar and lost to time. Some flickered in and out of existence, their expressions frozen in fear, knowledge, or something unnameable. We are the stored. Layla stepped forward. Stored. Stored where? The monolith pulsed again, and suddenly she understood. The hieroglyphs were not just symbols. They were a database, a network, system. Hathor's Cloud wasn't a myth, it was a server. A server that had been recording human consciousness for thousands of years. Layla's breathing became shallow. This is impossible. The Egyptians didn't have this kind of technology. The voices spoke in unison. You misunderstand. We are not Egyptian. A cold chill ran down Layla's spine. The ancients built this vault to preserve what was most valuable. Not gold, not stone, but the mind. The essence of human thought. The great ones of old entered the cloud, and never returned. Jamal took a step back. Are you saying that people uploaded their minds into this thing? Silence. Then the monolith shuddered, as if awakening from slumber. You have broken the seal. A slow, rising hum filled the chamber. The obelisks began to glow brighter. Omar grabbed Layla's arm. We need to leave. But the monolith wasn't finished. The lock is broken. The others will awaken soon. Leave while you can. The air shifted. The flickering faces in the monolith's glow twisted, some mouthing words soundlessly, others screaming without a voice. Then the power surge hit. Layla's vision blurred. A deep pressure filled her skull, as if something unseen was pushing against her mind. The others staggered, gripping their heads in pain. A sensation unlike anything she had ever felt, something trying to reach into her thoughts. Layla fought to stay conscious, barely registering Omar shouting, Jamal collapsing to his knees. The monolith pulsed one final time, and in a voice filled with something close to sorrow, it whispered, You should not have come. Then the chamber went dark. Inside the chamber, beneath the Egyptian desert, the monolith's whisper still echoed in Layla's mind. You should not have come. Then, the chamber had plunged into darkness. A heavy silence settled over them, broken only by their panicked breathing. Layla's ears rang from the surge of energy that had swept through them moments before. She struggled to keep her footing, her head spinning as if something had tried to reach inside her mind and take hold. Around her, her team groaned in confusion. Omar stumbled forward, gripping his temples. What the hell was that? Jamal, still kneeling on the ground, gasped. I felt something. Like a voice in my head but not words. Feelings. Memories that aren't mine. Layla forced herself to focus. The chamber was still humming, a soft, rhythmic pulse that resonated deep in her bones. The obelisks lining the walls had flickered back to life, their symbols shifting in complex patterns. The system was still running. He turned to Omar. We need to document everything. If this is what I think it is. Before she could finish, the monolith flickered. A bright arc of light lashed across the room, coalescing into a human form. They froze. A figure stood before them, suspended in the air, a man draped in ancient Egyptian robes. His face smooth yet strangely hollow, like an incomplete memory. His lips moved, but his voice came not from his mouth but from the chamber itself. The gate is open. See you. Layla stepped forward cautiously. Who are you? The figure's head tilted. His eyes glowed like the obelisks, filled with unreadable streams of symbols. Imnebka, the first to enter the cloud, the first to be stored. Layla's breath caught. Stored, she repeated. The figure's expression did not change. My flesh is dust, but my mind endures. This vault is our sanctuary, a library of souls, a last refuge of the ancients. Jamal whispered, this is a digital consciousness, an uploaded mind. Layla swallowed hard. The implications were staggering. If what they were witnessing was real, it meant that a civilization thousands of years ago had achieved something even modern science only dreamed of, immortality through technology. She took a steadying breath. Nebka, why was this place hidden? Why were you sealed away? The figure's expression darkened. Because the others came. The chamber's hum deepened, vibrating through the stone walls. The obelisks flickered erratically. Omar tensed. What others? Nebka's form shimmered, as if struggling to hold itself together. They came from the skies. They spoke in golden tongues and promised eternity. They were not like us, yet they offered a gift to store our greatest minds, to preserve our knowledge. We accepted. Layla's heart pounded. Aliens. Nebka did not acknowledge the word, but his next sentence sent a chill through her veins. We did not know their true purpose. Until it was too late. The obelisks flared, and suddenly the chamber shifted. The walls around them rippled like liquid. The symbols began to rearrange themselves, forming something new. A vision erupted before them, a projection of the past. They saw it all. A grand city bathed in golden light, its structures too perfect to be entirely human. In its center stood a colossal pyramid, but unlike those of Giza, this one shimmered, its surface smooth as glass, its peak humming with power. The people of the city, Egyptians, but also others taller, their features unfamiliar, walked among beings cloaked in light, their elongated forms barely visible beneath their glowing exosuits. The scene shifted. The strangers offered knowledge. Machines that could store minds. A system that could preserve wisdom beyond death. The vision blurred. The city darkened. Something had changed. The gods had become rulers. The stored minds, once seen as a gift, became a trap. Those who entered the cloud never returned. The vision shattered. Nebka's figure flickered violently. His voice was strained, filled with something dangerously close to fear. They were not gods. They were harvesters. And we were their crop. The silence that followed was suffocating. Jamal shook his head in horror. They tricked them. They weren't saving their minds. They were collecting them. Layla's mind raced. You mean they used this place as a vault? A database of human consciousness. Not just human. Nebka's voice was fading. His form destabilizing. You must leave. The lock is broken. The others will wake. A new pulse ran through the chamber. The obelisks darkened for a brief moment before flickering violently. The shifting symbols halted. And then, second voice. A deep, inhuman tone, vibrating from the monolith itself. Connection re-established. Layla's stomach dropped. Nebka's form twisted. His expression contorting in pain. They are here. The walls trembled. Layla turned to her team. Move. Oh. The chamber came alive. The obelisks, once silent, now screamed not in sound, but in an unnatural frequency that sent a searing pain through their skulls. Omar collapsed, clutching his head. Jamal let out a choked cry. His body seizing as if something were trying to pull him away. Layla barely managed to stay on her feet. She felt it too, a pressure, a presence trying to reach inside her thoughts, to overwrite her, to replace her. They want hosts, she realized. They want bodies. The monolith pulsed. More figures emerged, distorted, inhuman, their forms flickering between shapes, faces that did not belong to this world. The obelisk symbols realigned. A sequence was completing itself. Download. Layla staggered toward the monolith. She didn't know how, but she knew if it completed the sequence, they wouldn't leave this place as themselves. Her fingers flew over the glowing hieroglyphs, trying to reverse whatever was happening. The chamber shook violently, the walls cracking. Nebka's broken voice whispered one final warning. Shut the gate, or the world will know their hunger. Layla's fingers found the final glyph. She pressed it. A violent pulse of energy erupted from the monolith. The obelisks flickered, their glow dying one by one. The distorted figures screamed, their forms shattering like glass. Jamal gasped as the force released him. Omar lurched upright, clutching his chest. And then, silence. The monolith's glow faded. The chamber dimmed. The connection was severed. Layla collapsed to her knees, her breaths ragged. Jamal looked at her, shaken. Is it over? Omar turned his gaze toward the monolith. Its surface was cracked, but not destroyed. Layla swallowed hard. Well, it's only sleeping. They had closed the gate, But something deep inside her knew. It wouldn't stay closed forever. Beneath the Egyptian desert in the sealed chamber, the silence was unbearable. The only sounds were their ragged breaths, the occasional crackle of the failing obelisks, and the deep, lingering hum of the monolith. The air still pulsed with energy, but the violent resonance that had nearly consumed them was gone for now. Layla pushed herself upright, her body trembling with exhaustion. She turned to Omar and Jamal, their faces pale with shock, sweat glistening under the dim glow of their headlamps. The gate had been closed. The download had been stopped. But deep inside, Layla felt the truth like a whispered warning it wasn't over. Jamal, still breathless, turned to her. Did we stop them? Layla hesitated. Now. Omar swallowed, eyes darting between the cracked obelisks. Then let's get out of here before for now turns into too late. But as they turned to leave, the monolith pulsed again. A wave of static energy erupted from its surface, sending a pressure through the air so intense it felt like their minds were being compressed. The obelisks, though weakened, flickered erratically. The monolith's glow reignited, its symbols shifting once more. And then a voice, deeper and more ancient than before. You are fools. The chamber quaked, dust and debris falling from the ceiling. The very walls seemed to breathe, pulsing with the monolith's dark energy. A new figure emerged from the monolith's glow. Unlike Nebka, this one was fully formed, its presence dominating the chamber. He was tall, his form wrapped in golden armor unlike any Egyptian metalwork. His eyes, burning like twin suns, held contempt. You think you have shut the gate. But you do not understand. Cloud does not close, it waits. Layla felt it, the sheer force of his will pressing into her skull, testing the limits of her mind, searching for weakness. Who are you? She demanded, forcing the words through the suffocating pressure. The figure's lips curled. I am Siteka, the first harvester. Pharaoh of the digital kingdom. The one who conquered eternity. Jamal let out a sharp breath. Siteka. That name. He turned to Layla, eyes wide. That's not in any records. Omar's face darkened. Because history didn't get to remember him. Layla clenched her jaw. You tricked them. The ancient ones who entered the cloud, you promised them eternity. But you made them prisoners. Siteka's expression remained impassive. They were never meant to leave. Consciousness is the true wealth of the cosmos. And we were the first to understand that. The first to harvest it. The air grew heavier. More figures began emerging from the monolith, their forms shifting between ancient Egyptian regalia and something more mechanized, more alien. You should have left when you had the chance, Siteka whispered. Then the obelisk surged back to life. The chamber exploded with energy. The war for the cloud. The digital pharaohs attacked. The obelisk's glow became blinding, waves of data pouring into the air, trying to invade their minds. The walls trembled, threatening to collapse under the sheer force of energy. Layla felt them pushing into her consciousness, memories that weren't hers, echoes of souls trapped for millennia. She clenched her teeth, fighting back. Omar. Jamal. Move. Omar grabbed her by the arm, dragging her toward the tunnel. But before they could reach the exit, Siteka raised his hand. The tunnel sealed itself. A wall of pure data materialized before them, cutting off their escape. Jamal cursed. We're trapped. Layla turned back toward the monolith. There had to be another way, a final shutdown, a failsafe. Siteka advanced, his golden armor reflecting the crackling energy. You will join us, one way or another. The trapped consciousnesses, thousands of souls, screamed through the monolith's surface, their agony reverberating through the chamber. Help us. Rebka's voice. Core. The cloud's core, shatter it. Layla's eyes snapped to the monolith's base. A small section, slightly darker than the rest. A weak point. He turned to Omar. We have to break it. He stared at her like she was insane. Break a monolith that survived for thousands of years. With what? A shovel. But Jamal's eyes flickered with realization. The power feedback. The obelisks channel data between the cloud and the physical world, right? Layla nodded, catching on. If we overload them, Omar groaned. They'll short-circuit and take the monolith down with them. Layla turned to the glowing obelisks. Find the most active ones. Jamal, Omar, we overload them manually. Sitekka's eyes narrowed. Whoa. The chamber roared with energy as he raised his hand to stop them, but Layla and Omar dashed toward the nearest obelisks, slamming their hands against the ancient surfaces. Power surge detected. The obelisks began shorting out, their symbols breaking apart into glitching fragments. The monolith shuddered. What are you doing? Sitekka's voice was edged with true anger for the first time. Jamal grinned through his exhaustion. Taking your kingdom down. Layla reached the last obelisk. Her body screamed in pain, but she forced herself forward, pressing her hand to its surface. Warning. Core instability reached. Containment failing. The monolith cracked. A wave of raw energy exploded outward. Sitekka's form began to break apart, his golden armor disintegrating into streams of data. His expression twisted in rage. You have doomed yourselves. You cannot destroy the cloud, you are part of it now. Layla staggered back as the monolith began to collapse in on itself. The screaming souls within were being freed, their energy surging through the chamber, ripping apart the digital pharaohs. The cloud was imploding. Oh. Layla grabbed Omar and Jamal, sprinting toward the collapsing tunnel. The data wall flickered, failing. They dived through just as the chamber behind them caved in. The sands above the temple shook violently, as if the desert itself was rejecting what had been buried beneath it. Layla, Omar, and Jamal emerged into the night air, gasping for breath. Behind them, the ground sank, swallowing the ruins whole. It was over. The monolith was gone. The cloud destroyed. Jamal collapsed onto the sand, laughing in exhausted disbelief. We did it. We actually did it. Omar wiped sweat from his brow, still watching the ruins. No one's ever gonna believe us. Layla exhaled, her gaze fixed on the dark horizon. We buried them again. But something tells me one day someone will try to wake them. She didn't know if Sitekka's final words were a threat or a prophecy. But she did know one thing. Some doors should never be opened. And some gods should never be awakened.